Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for tonight's Real Conversations, breaking through the and concrete ceilings. We had to add both. I'm Tiffany Taylor Smith, proud member of the class of 1991. My day job is Assistant Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Dayton. In my spare time, I serve as one of the co-chairs for the Women's Network. I also serve on the university's Diversity Advisory Council and the Black Alumni Network. Yes, I have a lot of extra time. As we get started, I'd just like to pause for a moment and take a moment to acknowledge and express our love and solidarity with our Asian friends and family. REAL, Rochester's Equity and Access Leadership Conversations, is a new virtual series that launched last September, focusing on authentic discussions around equity, measurable action, and meaningful change. Now more than ever, when the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion and access are central to today's pressing issues in our country, we as a university are committed to engaging in candid and courageous conversations, listening to each other, and to the effective action to address these issues. This event is brought to you by the University of Rochester's Office of Alumni Relations and constituent engagement of the Office of Equity and Inclusion, the Diversity Advisory Council, and the newly formed Women's Network and Black Alumni Network. In honor of Women's History Month, our panel of accomplished professionals will share their journeys, including confronting sexism and systemic racism in the workforce. We will discuss fulfilling leadership roles predominantly occupied by men, address additional barriers and the emotional tax faced by women of color, and how to make effective change for more equitable work environments. Before we get started, I want to mention we'll share some housekeeping and helpful Zoom tips in the chat box. If you would like to ask a question, you may submit it at any time through the Q&A function that is located at the bottom of the screen. Tonight's program will cover some concepts that may be new to many of our viewers. Therefore, throughout the program, you will find some definitions for the terms we will discuss tonight shared in the chat. Please feel free to reference those as needed. To begin our shared understanding, we'll start with two terms that are referenced in tonight's event title, the glass and concrete ceilings. I'm excited to welcome you all and to introduce this esteemed panel that I have the honor of introducing. But first, I also want to say thank you to our captioneer and interpreters who are helping us to ensure this program is accessible to all of our viewers. First, I would like to introduce Dr. Erica Fullwood Augustine, who is the Associate Chief Science Officer at the Kennedy Krieger Institute in Baltimore, Maryland. She was previously an Associate Professor in Neurology at the University of Rochester after completing her MD and MS at the School of Medicine. Erica, thank you for joining us. Second, I'd like to introduce you Dr. Mira Henry, who is recently appointed President and CEO of the YWCA of Rochester and Monroe County. Most recently, Myra served as Deputy Dean of the University of Rochester's River Campus Libraries, where she also co-chaired the university's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Myra, thank you for being here with us. Our third panelist, Heather Steinfeld Moynihan, is a life sciences management consulting executive and entrepreneur. She was previously the first female partner and subsequently the first female senior partner at Simon Kucher and Partners. She is a college alumna and the proud parent of a 2020 graduate. Heather, welcome. And lastly, Renee Carrado is an alumna of the college and the Warner School of Education. She is a principal of Vega Robles Consulting, and a seasoned diversity and inclusion professional who has worked in the United States Tennis Association, AIG, Major League Baseball, and Gucci. Renee, thank you for joining us. I'll now get us started with our first question. And this is directed at all panelists. Tell us a little about your professional journey and how you got to where you are now. How would you describe your experiences as being a woman in predominantly male spaces?
I would be happy to get us started. Again, I'm Erica Fullwood Augustine, and I really love that idea of thinking about one's career as a journey. We all know that idea, and you might set off in one direction and have one endpoint in mind, but it's really nice to think about the detours, the stops, and all of the places that happen along the way. So when I reflect on my own career journey, it actually really goes back to high school. And I think about that particular point as the time when I really committed to a career in medicine. And part of that involved the University of Rochester and the Science and Technology Entry Program, or STEP, a pipeline program for underrepresented minority students who were interested in medicine. And I'm not sure that my high school self would have thought that that would be one of 3 different periods of my career spent at the University of Rochester, first as a high school student, then as a medical student after my undergraduate training at Harvard, and then again as a fellow and faculty member after my residency training as well. So the University of Rochester is really a special place and has been throughout my career. And so I really do go back to that high school period and that first formation of that relationship with the U of R. I became a child neurologist, and I really, as I got a chance to learn about the field, was really struck by the immense need for new treatments. We were advancing so much in medicine and so much in science, but really we're lacking in options and therapies for patients. And that's one of those detours that moved me into clinical research and clinical trials. And that, again, I learned about that and engaged with that at the University of Rochester. And my most recent step is a move to the Kennedy Krieger Institute, as you mentioned, Tiffany. And there I'm the Associate Chief Science Officer, where I oversee clinical research operations. We really have a focus on neurodevelopmental and neurological conditions across the lifespan as it relates to care, education, and research. So it's been a really fantastic move to focus in so many ways on my passions. And along that whole journey, to bring things back to Women's History Month, to our discussion today, so often I'm the only woman in a room of leaders. I'm really pleased that that's changing. I'm pleased to join everyone here tonight. And it is evolving, but along the way, it's been dismaying. When it comes to medicine, you think about when men and women really started to achieve parity in terms of matriculation. That's been at least 20 years that classes were starting to be approximately balanced. Yet when you look at leadership, at chairs, at deans, at university presidents, we really haven't had that catch up. And it's certainly time, and I think conversations like these are important ones in how we think about how we move forward. So I'm really pleased to be here today.
Thank you. Is there another? I'll let you go at your will. Dr. Henry?
Yep, okay, I'll jump in. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the University of Rochester, the Alumni Committee, for inviting me to this important panel and this very important discussion. And as Erica had mentioned, this is a journey, and everyone's journey looks different and takes different twists and turns. And as my journey has, I actually grew up, if you will, in the University of Rochester. I served in various capacities on both sides of the street, if we will, working 10 years in the medical center side, as well as a little over 12 or 15 years on the academic or River Campus side. And it was at the University of Rochester that gave me cover to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I did not come to the University of Rochester as Dr. Myra Henry, but as I transitioned from that space into the human services space, into the position that I have now at the YWCA of Rochester and Monroe County. I take that the experiences and the journeys of the many different departments that I served in with me. It has, making that transition has been interesting. As a lifelong Rochesterian, I surely thought I knew everything there was to know about Rochester. And in the space that I'm in now is quite interesting. It is quite empowering, giving that the YWCA's mission is to eliminate racism, empower women, and social justice for all. With that mission in sight daily, it gives me permission boldly to walk into this work and to identify barriers to advancement and elevation of women and women of color in certain spaces, and dismantle that and create new pathways. So again, just circling back, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and look forward to a very robust discussion.
Thank you. Heather?
Great, thank you very much. When I was at the University of Rochester, I was a health and society major. And what interested me most was kind of the business of healthcare. And when I started applying for jobs, I was moving to Washington, DC, and I landed a job. And when I started on my first day, I went into my new boss's office, and on her wall was a print of Mount Hope Cemetery. And I said, oh my gosh, I know that place. And I said, are you from Rochester? And she said, yeah, I went to the University of Rochester. And when I saw your resume, I told the hiring people that they needed to hire you. And I thought, oh, and that was kind of my first experience of, making a connection and realizing where that was going to take me. And that kind of propelled me into my consulting career and made me understand the importance of having those connections, et cetera. I stayed working with that boss and at that job for nearly 7 years. And during that time became an expert in the US healthcare environment and learned so much from her. Fast forward to about 2006, I joined the firm where I became a partner and was a senior hire there. 3 years later, became a partner at that firm. When I joined Simon Kucher, the partnership, I was the only woman in the US, as you stated earlier, Tiffany. And I never thought of myself as a female partner. I was just a woman doing her job, but I never really considered that I was different from the men who were doing the job. I had earned my way there. I had worked hard. And I never wanted to think of myself as having gotten there any other way. But small differences in the way either they responded to me or, the way maybe the political machine moved, conversations maybe happened behind the scenes that I wasn't necessarily, because you're not necessarily in the fold all the time. I started to notice differences. And I think that that's when you start to realize there are some differences between, being a man in the job and being a woman in the job. That's, a little bit about my experience kind of being a woman in the man's world, kind of started to come about. But that's a little bit about my journey to get where I am today.
Thank you. Renee?
Thanks, Tiffany, and thank you. Again, as everyone has said, thank you for inviting me up to this panel this evening. It's a pleasure to be here with all of these very interesting women. It's exciting, especially during Women's History Month. I am probably the poster child for career ADD, which I have since renamed as the art of reinvention. I started obviously at the University of Rochester undergraduate. I was one of the first groups of students that designed their own degree in international relations. It wasn't a degree at the time. We had to kind of petition. Definitely always anticipated going to law school and changing the world, but then had this unique opportunity to get my master's of education at Warner. And it was a great experience. Really kind of bolstered my confidence in what I wanted to do next. And then I landed at law school, went to law school, and went into the practice of law, big firm, small firm, in-house, et cetera, when I realized I just didn't like lawyers and I did not want to do this any longer. So I took advantage to pivot, and I landed actually working for the city of New York. And it was there through the arts of networking, which I think sometimes we forget to do, especially as women in this space, how important it is. That's how I actually landed in sports, which was always my first love. And I landed at the NBA Retired Players Association as their COO. And through sports, landed in the diversity and inclusion space. I tell people that I landed in diversity and inclusion through the United States Tennis Association. I was on the website looking for tickets to the US Open as a native New Yorker, had never attended, saw that little button called careers, clicked on it and said, what's going on here? And I saw this role for diversity and inclusion. And I tell everyone it's the first time I applied for a job like a man. I had no idea what they were talking about. I was like, I don't know what all this is, but I can figure it out. And I applied and I ended up landing the job and was in sports for several years. Wanted to pivot and get international experience and went to big corporate through AIG, came back to sports and landed my first chief diversity officer job in Major League Baseball, which definitely changed the trajectory of my world. And then subsequently went back to corporate with Gucci. And again, another ADD moment, decided it was time to be an entrepreneur and start my own company as Vega Robles Consulting. And when I think about the journey, as everyone has alluded to, it's interesting, and Erica kind of touched on this a little bit, when I think about where I am now with DE&I, I realize I think I might have been made for this when I think about how I grew up and where I grew up and the communities and my family. Coming from a family of advocates and fighters and, you know, civic trailblazers in a lot of ways from a very grassroots level, this fit for me well. And when I think about going into sports, which is such a male-dominated industry and such interesting personalities and characters, I will say, you know, hashtag ditto to everything that Heather said, but I will also add that my success, is a lot of it is directly attributable to having great male allies. And I've had great male sponsors and partners in crime who really helped me succeed in this space and supported me. So while it is definitely a challenging environment to be in, probably some of us who are of a certain age didn't know we were being Me Too'd until Me Too actually got a name for it. I also have very good experiences with working with men, and I am grateful to many of them for helping me land and have the success I've had to date.
Thanks, Renee. I'm laughing because I'm on my third career. So I don't know, maybe it's the Meliora in us and always better, always pursuing better and exploring better as we continue to move. And that represents what we learned and who we are. And it was in us. I want to pivot now to just some general questions. Let's talk a little bit about intersectionality of identities in the workforce. Erica, Myra, and Renee, can you elaborate on the emotional tax experienced by women of color in the workplace?
Again, I'd be happy to start. And, you know, I think that sometimes we consider our respective groups or aspects of ourselves, and you might think 1 + 1 is 2. I think when it comes to intersectionality, when it comes to stress or toll or tax, that can be more multiplicative. It really is, it can be at times very isolating. Again, I particularly speak from a position of thinking about academia, where you're already a member of one small group as an underrepresented minority, and then an even smaller group as it relates to being a woman who is an underrepresented minority. And sometimes that can not only be an emotional tax, but I would even point to what I would think of as a time tax. There's quite a lot of institutional service that comes along with being an academic. And that service is expected and it's ideal when it aligns with your academic goals and your academic career path. Yet as a woman, as a Black woman, there are other expectations or other requests that come along that have very much to do not only with my science interests or my clinical interests, but actually with my identity as a Black woman. If there's a diversity task force, if there's a task force that relates to women, if there's a task force on equity, if there's a spokesperson for something, all of those things come to you and they don't detract from the other expectations that are on your plate as an academic, they're additive. And so some of that emotional tax, really, again, it's a time tax. It's an anticipated contribution tax that comes into play. And so those are some of the first things that come to mind when I think about a few of those tangible aspects of intersectionality in these relatively privileged spaces.
I'll jump in here. I'm sorry, Myra, were you going to? I apologize. Okay, well said. I think it's really also kind of thinking about it and having been in this space for 10 years now from the diversity and inclusion perspective and having these conversations on a regular basis. I think it's important. It's very much like a rich stew of, compromised confidence, a feeling of invisibility, and the silencing of your voice. And, it is physically and psychologically being exhausted of always having to lean into a culture that may not always be committed to allowing you to show up as your best self, whether it's your accent, your tone, how you write and communicate, then you're also, as a result, you're in a constant state of code switching and of being on guard, a constant state of vigilance and being reminded that you're different. So you're working every day, as Erica mentioned, like you're working every day. In addition to your day job and what you're hired to do, to move, your other job is always focusing on moving from being an outsider to an insider. And more often than not, the cost of that is very, very high. You either fail by staying on a psychological hamster wheel, or you do become an insider, but at the expense of yourself, maybe your values, your happiness, et cetera. So it's challenging. And in turn, from a business perspective, that can have an impact on the business, the organization you're in. But to make it very, very practical, I would say it's almost like, you leave home every day from work, but you leave the lights on, you leave the water running, you leave the dishwasher and the dryer going, you leave the TV and the radio on. And you do this every day, 5 days a week for 10, 12 hours a day. So what does your bill look like at the end of the month, at the end of the year? It's expensive and your resources are definitely depleted. So the depth of the impact of that emotional tax on women of color is real. And there has to be a lot more deliberate investments on providing an environment that takes that additional burden on, takes that additional burden off of these women.
I would echo both what Renee and Erica have said, and I'll just share a very brief personal experience that happened to me in terms of that intersectionality, right? And the tax of being a Black woman in leadership in an organization. And, again, the YWCA's mission is about intersectionality, eliminating racism and empowering women. That's the intersectionality of race and gender. And I was appointed in this position at December 1st of 2020. And shortly after I got here, there was a small emergency that required me to come back on a Friday evening. And checked on, we have housing services. So checking on some of our clients that reside in our building, reached out to help one of our residents, which was an older white woman. And she snatched away from me and said, "Who are you? I don't know you." Now, mind you, my picture had been up, the residents had been notified that I was coming. And I said, "Oh, you don't know me? I'm your new executive director. I'm the president and CEO. Let me help you. And she snatched away from me and said, you don't look like a president or a CEO. You have braids in your hair. And, you know, that hurt. I'm like, okay, well, let me make sure you know who I am for sure. So, you know, I'm here to help. The point being, again, through that intersectionality of race and gender, she was more concerned about my race and who I was than her well-being. And I couldn't push her away. My responsibility and my job is to provide service. So that's what that emotional tax looks like in real time. Don't have time to shove what the world how the world sees me, or what people anticipate just by my face or my hair, have already sized me up to be or not. The work still has to continue. So the emotional tax and the Black fatigue is real.
And I just add anecdotally to that as well, like, I want to be clear that we're not victims. You know, this is, and Myra just tapped into this, you know, it is exhausting and it's a distraction, and it makes doing the job that much more difficult. We build a resilience from it, but it's an unreasonable burden and an unreasonable way to learn that lesson that is unevenly imposed on women of color. But I don't want this to be like, you know, we're broken, because we're not. You know, we rise above it, we continue on, but the real conversation around this is it shouldn't even be there to begin with, because it distracts us from the work that we're there to do, and the value that we're capable of bringing. So I just also want to stress that, and I think Myra's example lends itself to that in particular.
Thank you, ladies. It's important to note that there is not just a power struggle between men and women in the workforce. An additional power struggle has emerged between white women and women of color, where the advancement of women can often lead to or appear as though the advancement of only white women. Thus, access to opportunity remains unequal, resulting in tension, resistance, and distrust in some instances. What needs to be done to break down these oppressive cycles so that we can advance all women in this movement?
I'll just jump in and start there. Again, being in this new space of human services, I will admit quite candidly that I was disheartened. I knew the demographics of the folks that we served at the YWCA. 85% of the women that we serve are Black and brown and look like me. However, most of them, up until my appointment, I'm the first person of color, a Black woman, to lead the YWCA in Rochester in Monroe County. And as I'm learning and navigating this space and learning about it, I'm surprised to find out that there aren't more people of color, but particularly women of color in human services leading our local agencies. So, and I have received a warm welcome from folks all across the county. And I think that that is the first step to answering that question, how do we break down these barriers? It is first acknowledging that they exist and that the representation at leadership levels is not there for the agencies and the people that we serve.
I'll jump in here. This comes up often in our work, and this is something I'm personally passionate about. I don't know if it's still in existence. It used to be the Black and Hispanic Women's Alliance at the University of Rochester, and I hope we can hope that's still there and has expanded to include more women. But when you think about this, I think first and foremost, we need to stop believing and unlearn the idea that there's only room for one of us at the table. It's a Jedi mind trick. You know, I have yet to experience with any real frequency male leaders saying there's just too many cis men here. You know, it's happening more, but it's not yet the norm. The second thing is I think we need to be infinitely more proactive at building out more genuine relationships with one another. I still see the same behavior today at work and in corporate America that I saw in high school. All the brown kids sit at one table in the cafeteria, all the Asian kids sit at another, and all the Caucasians at another. I think it's still happening. And while we know intellectually this is really not effective, as there is strength in numbers, our emotional intelligence around this for women remains low. And we have to be infinitely more diligent about building these connections with each other as women who see their similarities and equally see and recognize their differences and use them together to leverage them as a collective group. The third thing I will also say about this, and then I'll pass the mic, I promise, competition is okay, but competition should not lend itself to sabotage. Not everyone is going to get that promotion. Not everyone is going to get that C-suite spot, and it's okay to be mad and disappointed, but it doesn't mean we should disrupt or interfere with another's ascension. And lastly, in this journey to build out these relationships, I do think we need to show each other a little bit of grace. And allow for questions and maybe mistakes and missteps and assume best intent and not malice and use them as opportunities, as teachable moments and opportunities to skill up in this space. And that's where you can start to build out that true allyship.
I completely agree. And, you know, that idea that there's only room for so many at the top, or each group and based on a particular aspect of identity has to work in a silo. When we come together, as you said, Renee, there is strength in numbers. And there are similarities in terms of challenges. There are overlapping interests. And where those interests combine, we really should work together. Salary equity analyses, that's good for everyone. Greater investment in leadership development, that's good for everyone. You know, we have these shared issues and challenges. We take a look at the news, and reflect on the most recent years and the prominence of the news cycles around racial violence. We can work together towards those issues. Those same kinds of challenges appear again and again in different groups based on different aspects of identity. And really, partnership can be incredibly powerful in thinking about how we advance for all in different ways.
Can I just pick up on one thing that Renee said, is that, you know, we can't begrudge someone for making it to the C-suite or whatever if we didn't get there. I think that what we also have to remember is that there will always be people that walked ahead of us, and that we are lucky to have walked in their paths. And there are going to be people who come behind us, and we forged a path for them. And we may not make it to the C-suite, but we either have forged a path for someone, or have inspired someone, or have made it somehow easier for someone else to get to where they will have gotten. And that also is important. And whether we are recognizing talent early and giving someone an opportunity, fostering their ability, becoming an ally, becoming a sponsor, or just doing our job to the best of our ability and showing them what can be done, that is an important role as well. So nothing is lost if we don't make it to that pinnacle. And I echo Renee's words, don't begrudge someone else for getting to that spot, because we may have forged the way.
Thank you, ladies. The next question is, what are the benefits of having gender and racial diversity in leadership roles? Heather, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Tiffany. I think that everyone has seen the literature that says Companies that have women on the boards or in the C-suites are more profitable, et cetera. And that's true. But I think that there's a much more practical application to having diversity in leadership. And that is on a day-to-day basis, it helps with things like recruiting and retention of talent. I can't tell you how many times as a partner in my firm, when there was maybe just me as a woman or one or two of us, where we had during recruiting season, young women say, I look on the website and there's only men in leadership positions. Does that mean that I'm not going to have a good career here? And maybe you then lose the opportunity to hire great talent because they don't see a path for themselves. Or from a retention perspective, if you're a firm or a company that only has one type of leader or not a very diverse set of leadership, that talent may not stick with you because they don't see a path for themselves. I mean, it really can, if you don't have diverse leadership, it can impact who you can attract, who you can retain. The other thing that can happen if you don't have diverse leadership is that the leadership you have becomes an echo chamber, and they don't innovate. They don't bring new ideas to the table because they just continue to do things as they've always done. And either nothing ever changes or changes just become real slow to happen. So it's really important to have diversity at the high levels because otherwise things just stagnate, and that's not good for a company.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to add something to that?
Yeah, I would also add on the other side of the equation that oftentimes is not spoken about. And yes, Heather is 100% right. Like there's so much data proving all of the benefits to an organization. I think it's equally important that we start that representation, that gender and racial diversity, LGBTQ diversity is critical because it also starts to normalize it in our society, that it doesn't become an outlier. It's not something unique. It's just what good leadership looks like. And it's a teachable, very, proactive way of, teaching future generations of work of, what good looks like, and that it's not this one-dimensional model. So I think it's just as important, not only from the aspirational perspective for recruiting purposes and for other people of color to see them. I also think it's important, just as important for our Caucasian counterparts to see that and understand that this is what it is. This is normal. Good comes in a variety of shades, colors, genders, etc. So I would just add that as well, something to think about of the value that it brings. It will start to break down some of those systemic inequities and biases that, continue to live in all of our organizations, but you're doing it beyond the training. It's actually modeling what great looks like.
I'd like to pick up on that idea of great. I think the data matter. I think we've sort of alluded to this, and the idea that there are data from almost every sector that have really shown again and again that diverse teams produce better outcomes. There are big challenges facing every field, every sector, and we want the greatest minds tackling those problems, really considering how we move ahead, think in a new way, create in a new way. And if our teams are not diverse by many different definitions of diversity, we're missing out on opportunities to tackle those big challenges in new ways. So, I think about the U of R motto, Meliora, ever better. We should strive for that in every way. And part of ever better is really making sure that we're accomplishing those goals and really having diversity reflected in everything that we do by many measures to find the best minds to tackle the challenges at the table.
And I'll just jump in and add to what everyone has said. These measures of increasing diversity in our workspaces have to be intentional, and they need to be talked about with intentionality. It's not just going to happen. It's not going to happen by accident, but it needs to be, if it does happen by accident, it needs to be on accident on purpose. And it needs to be communicated through an organization so that it's not just happening in a bubble in the C-suite, but throughout the organization, folks can see how their value, how their diverse skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities bring value to the organization.
Thank you, ladies. Next question. Erica, what does breaking through the glass and concrete ceiling look like to you? What's needed in order for this to happen?
Well, I think about some of the comments, Myra, I think about the story, that experience that you shared, and I think about some of the things, Renee and Heather, that you said. You know, breaking through the glass, through the concrete, it really means that if you look anywhere, you see people who reflect the nation. You can see yourself in anything that you want to do. And I think when we achieve that, we know that we've moved forward in the right way, not in segments and buckets and pieces, but we've really had a wholesale shift to rethinking what good looks like, what great looks like, and what it means to have representation. And, you know, as was just said, Myra just said, this has to be very intentional. There has to be concerted investment. It won't just happen. And if it does just happen for a little while, it doesn't necessarily remain that way. And there needs to be continued vigilance around these issues and around these topics. And again, focus and constructive investment in that way. You know, I think about a lot of pipeline programs. I think about recruitment efforts, both of which are really important pieces of the puzzle. But then what are the things that happen to ensure success once you've tapped into a new candidate pool, once you've tapped into a cohort of new faculty, for instance? Well, what are the things that can intentionally be done to support, to set individuals up for success, to make clear that they are valued, that they are supported? It really is a continuous process and continued reevaluation. So that's what I start to think about when I look at the future, when I look towards the future, and also in how I want to spend my time in helping to create and foster that future.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, and I think this kind of piggybacks exactly on what Erica says. Those programs, the recruitment, the retention, even the developmental programs are phenomenal, but these breakthroughs are not going to happen unless we're making that intentional investment in the culture. You know, how are you continuously evolving your culture to allow for an environment that everyone can succeed in? And that has to be equally intentional and looked at and analyzed through data, you know, and whether it's engagement surveys, retention, et cetera. Like, what does your culture look like? Because you could bring everyone in and you can invest a whole lot of money and resources, but if the culture is not structured in a way to allow an ROI on that investment, it's basically lost. It's a lost opportunity. And that ceiling that's never going to actually be broken through. And the other part of this is, I would say, you know, I think, and it's totally different, but yeah, I think we break through the glass and the concrete ceiling when more women are building, developing, and owning their own companies. But that's a whole other conversation and probably a separate panel in and of itself.
I want to move on to the next question, actually, and Renee, and I wonder, how are industries evolving to be more inclusive and equitable for women and people of color?
I don't know if evolving is the right word. I think they're not there yet. I haven't seen that type of major evolution. I think two things are happening that I haven't seen before in the 10 years I've been in this. And we've heard this word quite a bit in the last 45 minutes or so, there is definitely more intentionality around this conversation than there has been in the past. I think the Me Too movement, and especially BLM, have pushed organizations to look at themselves in a much more honest way. And it's not only coming from the prompting of their DE&I department. You know, I see it coming from their employees, again, saying that we have to do better, and there's an expectation around that. So conversations are now happening in a way that goes beyond the social responsibility component of creating this equity, which is important. But now they're proactively attaching genuine metrics around the key components around culture, recruitment, retention, development, and they're sharing them publicly, which I think arguably is pushing them into a more aggressive level of accountability than I've seen in the past. The second thing I would say is I am seeing, as we all know, the two biggest workforces in our companies now and our businesses are leaning either boomer and or millennial Gen Z. And the millennials are emerging into mid-career positions of management and leadership, and Gen Zs are starting to take a more proactive role in the workforce. Those generations that are pushing these industries, I guess, to evolve because they have a different level of comfort and exposure around these conversations. And it sounds, you know, very, very elementary, but these are generations that, you know, their preferred music was hip hop. These are generations that they did see a Black president, and it wasn't that out of the norm, right? So some things have been normalized for them with regard to bringing diversity into their day-to-day lives that they expect to see in the work environment. And I think they're more apt to hold the companies that they work for accountable. And I think they are trying to lead with a little bit of a more progressive and forward-thinking approach to management and leadership, especially as it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you. Let's talk about mentors and sponsors. Mentors talk with you, sponsors talk about you. Myra, have you had any mentors or sponsors in your professional journey? How do they fit into the advancement of women, especially women of color, in a white male-dominated workforce?
Yeah, great question. The short answer is yes. However, I will color that in a little bit, given that I've had mentors along my journey. Again, my journey was my journey, so I won't say it wasn't traditional. It just was my journey. And I obtained my degrees later in life, a long-term employee at the University of Rochester. And as I said earlier, the University of Rochester provided me cover. And I'll be the first person to tell you the University of Rochester helped pay for all of my degrees with the generous tuition reimbursement policies. There were folks that I came across on the River campus during my time there that were instrumental in my success. And I'll, if I could just do a quick shout out to Beth Oliveris, who before I had any degrees, yes, okay, Tiffany, so you know who I'm talking about, was, you know, I was able to pull her coattail and say, I'm almost, and I'll be honest, I'm almost 40 years old. Can I do this? And she was able to, you know, really pave a way for me that made this palatable in terms of obtaining degrees and going to the next level and the next level. Now, she wasn't the only mentor I had. I have another mentor, Dr. Jefferson, I'll call him out as well, who was a strong male influence in my administrative and professional career, and who, quite frankly, on more occasions than one, has tapped me on my shoulder as a sponsor and said, you can do this, you need to do this. I've made an introduction for you here. I've made a phone call on your behalf there. So it is very important for us to have mentors and sponsors along the way and be, again, intentional. I think that's the word for the evening, to be intentional about who we invite into our space and along our pathway. And make sure that, and even if the plans change along the way, at least they're sowing into our journey and our intended outcomes as we grow and as we grow as professionals. I think women need to be a little more assertive about that. We often come across passive and are waiting for an invitation to be invited into, hey, can I work with you, or I'm willing to help you. But I think we have to turn the tables and ask for help, or say, I'm looking out, I need you to help me. And there are many others I could call, names I could call, but I won't.
Heather, would you like to add any thoughts, reflections to this as well? Are you?
Thank you.
You
Yeah,
got it?
I was having trouble unmuting there.
It's always like, where's the button?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that if for me personally, finding sponsors was always more challenging than finding mentors, right? And I don't know if that's was a male-female thing, if it was a kind of a maturity of the organization aspect, or if it was a generational issue where, you know, we were entering the workforce at a time when maybe there wasn't so much emphasis put on the need for a sponsorship. But it was, you know, the navigating the political aspects of an organization was very challenging, and understanding how that happened. And if you kind of enter a landscape that you're unfamiliar with, for me, a partnership, and you don't know how that works, but nobody is there to kind of tell you about it, that's really difficult to navigate. And if somebody's not bringing you in to say, hey, this is how this might happen, or, you know, you need to kind of work your way in like this, you won't know how to navigate that. And it's really important that people who are coming up behind anyone else who's had that experience, the onus is on us to make sure that they get brought into the fold, and that we're not just mentoring them to help them develop skills, but that we know that they need to be given the other tools as well. And I just think that's really, really important.
And one of the things we know to be true as we talk about mentors and sponsors is that oftentimes sponsors find you. And that's, you know, kind of working with your mentors and others in the organization just to make sure that they're aware of you. But the sponsorship role really is someone who finds you and makes an investment in your career. And it's about, you know, how do you market yourself to make sure that they know who you are and what you're doing. Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything to that question?
That last piece of what you said is so critical, being visible enough that people can find you, and to be ready to promote yourself a little bit, or to share what your goals are, have a concrete sense of some of your goals, so that when those questions come or that opening is there, you can let someone know that has the potential to be a sponsor for you. I'm really interested in this kind of opportunity. If you hear about that, please let someone know, or please think of me. And sometimes that'll happen naturally, but it may happen more if you're putting out there what your goals are. And I think that mentorship, it really is great that we're spending some time on this topic, because mentorship and sponsorship are so key. And mentorship, many different kinds of mentors as well. It's not necessarily all embodied in one person. And, you know, you have a mentor in your discipline, someone who perhaps is outside, within your organization, outside your organization for those things you can't discuss internally. Really having that team, that network of mentors and advisors can help you to be nimble when you're facing difficult decisions. And just as Heather said, I think there's real joy in having had sufficient sponsorship that I've now developed my own networks and my own opportunities, and I can pass that on. It's such a joy when topics come up, when looking for a speaker, you should call so-and-so. And to bring that opportunity and to move that on to someone else is just such a joy. And it's so fantastic to be able to bring others in to that fold and to act as that sponsor for others.
I agree. I will say, I refer to it often as my personal executive board. And it's like they're on Team Tiffany. And it's that collaboration of men and women across all different levels of diversity that are really my go-to people who help me think through when I have a situation, I have something come up. It's like, hey, help me think through this, or just that network of resources as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughtful questions that have been submitted. So we want to take a moment to now transition to the audience Q&A. We will now address as many of those as we can if we haven't already done so. There are other factors that come into play when we're talking about equality in the workforce. Gender outside of the binary, age, class, sexual orientation, ability, and others. As women with expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion, how does this intersectionality inform your work? And Myra and Renee, feel free to chime in first.
Okay. I was trying to defer to Myra here. Look, it informs all of our work at any given time. Like when we're doing this work, we always have to consider where intersectionality is at play. Now, you can't boil an ocean, and sometimes you have to prioritize some things, but we do want to make sure that we're considering the impact of intersectionality on whatever programming, investment, et cetera, that we're doing. It's definitely not one-dimensional. We know that people are multidimensional, so we try to keep all of that in mind. But I don't know if I don't think you can do this work without taking into consideration intersectionality. I think it would be failure if you didn't. So I can say, at any given time when we're doing our work, when I'm building out my strategy and when I'm thinking about things tactically, I think about, what I'm building, how can it impact the most people possible in the best way possible, and taking into account, again, prioritizations, but then seeing how do we duplicate those efforts for other parts of the populations that we're trying to support. So it is embedded in the entire strategy at any given time, and tactically around deployment as well. It's important. And it's also important to make sure that those groups are actually talking to each other and bringing those voices so they can actually recognize the intersectionality themselves. Sometimes it's a little bit lost because we're always on this wheel to get things done with a particular lens in mind, and we kind of forget the other components. So it actually is helpful to bring that intersectionality at the table by bringing these different voices and groups together to inform on what the next step should be to move the agenda along, whether it's at corporate, nonprofit level, et cetera.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. It's, again, to be intentional about sometimes making ourselves uncomfortable with reaching out of our norm to say, you know what, looking around the table and asking ourselves the questions, whose voice is missing? Who am I overlooking? Who's not included in this conversation? And then reaching out beyond our sphere of influence to invite those new voices to participate. It is very important, I think, I just think that's the way we live, work, and really breathe with an inclusive and equitable lens, is if we're looking beyond our own sphere of influence.
The next question is submitted by Danielle. When women strive to achieve success, they may feel that the price of professional advancement comes at the expense of their spouses, children, family, and friends, and even at their own personal expense. Have you ever experienced these pressures, and how have you navigated them?
So I'll jump in. Again, I'm a married mother of 4. Oh yeah. But what was important for me on my journey is that my family was included in my journey in every step of the way. There were conversations that were had about night classes, new opportunities, new instruction opportunities. I think it's very important that when, as women, especially since the, as the data and the research shows that not only do we take on a lot at work, but we still take on a lot at home as well, that we're having frequent and constant conversations with our family. If you're moms, your children aren't too young to be included into that conversation. And we moved as a family unit. So I think it was, important that when decisions were being made about my career and what my next steps were, whether they were academically or professionally, that I included my children in that conversation. So they felt like, that my success was their success, and we celebrated together.
Can I add to that, Tiffany?
Please, thank you.
So I was a single mom for most of the years that I was a partner. And my son was about 8 when I became a partner. And if anyone knows about consulting, it's heavy travel and you're on the road a lot. And I relied on my mom to cover for me when I wasn't home. And people would say, I don't know how you do that. It's how can you, raise your son and be on the road all the time? And I asked my son, he's an adult now, and I said, did you ever feel like I wasn't around enough or anything like that? And he said, no. I mean, you were always there when it counted. And I think that what we have to remember is that you're not going to be able to do it all the time. And obviously you have to make trade-offs, right? If there is something important going on in your personal life on a given day or at a given time, that's what you have to prioritize on that day. And if there's something, a project at work, or there's something happening with that, then that's what you have to prioritize. And just like anything else, you have to make trade-offs. But you can, if it's important to you, you can make both work.
I'll just say as a product of a Heather, a single mom, a career mom, she's right. I'm not in therapy. I'm okay with what my mother did. Like, I understood it. And a big part of it was, to Myra's point, she took me along on her journey. And she also communicated the prioritizations and why. So I always knew it wasn't for lack of love, affection, or a want to do or be more there for me, whatever, but she kind of always contextualized it in such a way. So I think I turned out pretty okay. So I would say to, especially the moms in this space, and we're thinking about moms, I think it's not impossible, but do recognize the trade-offs and operate with transparency. And I think most kids will understand and will actually look at you as a role model, because I'm sure Heather's son definitely looks at her at a different light, and it probably has also influenced his perspective on women in the workplace. So there's value there, and it can work. There'll be pain points, but it's not impossible.
And I hope that with those approaches, including your spouse, including your family, which is definitely what we do in this household. My husband and I and our kids, we make decisions together. We just made a move. And, moving in a pandemic is perhaps not the most straightforward thing, but this is a path that we're on. And we work through that together. We make these decisions together. We check in, we make sure that everybody's doing okay. And as everyone has said, you can't do everything. No one is Wonder Woman. That doesn't happen. So you can't do everything, but you can do the important things. And that really is where, as a family, you figure out what's important to us. What are the most important things? And let's make sure those needs are met, those desires and wants are met. And then things that perhaps are not necessarily so important to any of us, maybe they just need to get done, but it may not matter who does it. Well, then let's think about how we take care of those needs in a separate way. But what are our true family needs and how do we embrace those can be a really valuable way to rethink those priorities and try and move towards mostly upside, little expense.
Thank you. I remember I had a mentor say to me many, many years ago as a young mom wanting to get her PhD. And I asked her that question around when is the right time and why and how. And she said to me, you can have it all, just not all at once. It's like, didn't totally get it then. And now later, as I'm getting my PhD, I see it. I want to pivot now to our next question, submitted by Sisman. We have some men joining us today, and they seek to become better advocates and allies. How can men support women in their quest to break gender barriers? And anyone can chime in first.
I'll take a stab. I'll take a stab at that.
Thanks.
I think there's probably a couple of different ways. We've talked about mentoring, we've talked about sponsorship, being good allies. But I think that it's also, in order to be those things, it's recognizing when it's necessary to jump in, not being afraid to speak up on someone's behalf. If you see a microaggression happening, you see someone not giving credit to a woman on your team, speak up for her, step in when necessary, give opportunities to the women. If you are in a position as a man to be a manager or a leader at a company, give opportunities across the board, not just to other men. I think there are a lot of ways that you can help foster advancement, skill development, and just career development for women.
I would also challenge the men and encouragement. Ask the women on your team, ask the women in your space, how am I doing? What do you need? What can I be doing better? Do that check-in. Don't assume that it's working or it's not working, or assume that there's nothing you can do. Start there. Ask the question and create an environment that will allow the women in that space to be honest and transparent with you, that they can support you and approach it as a journey, and frame it, quite frankly, as, and I do believe this strongly, that equity and inclusion is a leadership competency. And you're going to invest in your leadership around this when you ask those questions that may not give you the answers you like, but at least there are things that you can action on, and follow up when you get the feedback. Follow up, do the work. That's going to be infinitely more impactful than a lot of things that you're doing passively.
And I would add, asking that question and having that self-reflection is a really important first step. And to keep asking those questions. Look around the rooms you're in. If it's a room that's only a room full of men, well, then those questions are, well, why are there only men here? How do leadership decisions, how do those get made? What does the hiring process look like? Do we have a slate that looks balanced? And keep asking those questions. And if within there really aren't any women who also are ready to be in that room, okay, well then how do we prepare those who are earlier in their careers to then be in position to be the next partner, or to be the next leader, or the next division chief? What does that look like? So those questions and really digging deep for the answers and then solutions are key.
Thank you. I want to move on to the next question submitted by Emily. Did you ever have to deal with the disparity of salary and ability for promotional growth within your journeys? Anybody can chime in.
I think we're all thinking yes, but
I know, right? How do I frame that answer?
we're all like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, again, I think I'll just say this for me. I was lucky enough to have male sponsors and allies that supported me around those conversations, because they were things that I was not innately comfortable with tackling, or advocating for myself in that way was not my sweet spot. I can do it for other people, but for myself was infinitely harder. So to your point, Tiffany, I had my executive board around me to kind of shore me up, help me with my talking points, and then having the sponsors also in those rooms where I started the conversations with them and having them also kind of be like, Professor Oz working the machine behind, the curtain and helping move that along for me. But I will be candid. I'm always working on this. I'm always trying to get better at this. I'm always trying to be more comfortable with this. And I don't think, I think some people are naturally good at it. I'm not, and I'm still working on it. So would love to hear from my colleagues on the panel. If anybody has cracked the code, do share.
Well, I haven't cracked the code, and when somebody gets that book, share it with me as well. I will say what has helped me over time is to know my own value and know the value of my body of work, and not be afraid to amplify that in the discussions and keep it about the discussions. Oftentimes, women get tagged as being emotional or overreacting or whatever, but if you can keep it about the issue, and the issue is, this is a body of work that I produce and I'm good at it, or whatever it is, whatever that body of work looks like, and I should be duly compensated for what I do and how well I do it, and be able to point to those metrics. That helps the conversation, at least from my experience.
And I'll just piggyback on that. We should have actually started there. You do great work. You have to do great work consistently. And yes, the bar could change, and sometimes it will be unfair, but until we're in those positions of power and making those decisions and advocating for more of us, start with great work, because then you will have the data to justify the conversation, and advocate for yourself with a data-driven approach. And quite frankly, what I did learn, sometimes you got to leave to make more money. Sometimes you have to take the risk and take the leap and move on if you're not being properly compensated. And it's scary and it's daunting and you're going into the unknown, but I can tell you from experience, it has always worked out, and I've always been rewarded, and I've always caught up to getting what I was owed for the quality of the work that I did produce.
Do great work, as Renee said, and don't assume that that's enough. That don't assume that doing the work will mean that you will be compensated accordingly. And again, from an academic perspective, I think all of the income and salary information, they're hidden under all the rocks all over the place. No one wants to talk about it. The information is not public, with the exception of public institutions. So it can be really hard to find information, to really try to understand, well, how do I think about my own value? How do I not only think about my work and the issues, but what's market value? What does that mean? How do I think about my worth in a way that is conceived in a reasonable way? And it really took for me having opportunities for academic development, for career development outside of the university, not because they're any different than anywhere else, but really outside of my institution, to learn how to access that information, to better understand where to look for that information, and then to go to my my executive board and to vet some of that and to be vulnerable with vetting that information. And certainly if you can have that vulnerability with your peers to really talk about that information in a confidential way, you can, again, help one another in understanding what's there, but really working to build those skills around issues-based negotiation are really, really beneficial.
Okay. Our next question. What advice would you give to your younger self and any young women joining us tonight, especially with finding mentors and sponsors?
I would definitely tell my younger self, and I tell my own children this all the time, don't settle, take chances. If there's someone, I have 2 kids in college, and if there's a professor that you're interested in their work, reach out to them, especially in this virtual space we live in, right? So send an email. It's harder to bump into people on campus or in the dining hall these days, but absolutely reach out. Find out a little bit about the people that you're interested in and the work that they do, and always go into a meeting, ask for a meeting, and if you're granted that meeting, have 3 good questions and allow the folks to kind of talk about their journey and see what you can learn when you're prospecting mentors and sponsors. But absolutely don't settle and take chances.
For me, I would say, I would tell my younger self, find work that you are truly passionate about. And when the passion isn't there anymore, go ahead and move on. Don't be afraid to move on. Don't stay longer than you need to. And about mentors and sponsors, don't be afraid to ask. Most people are going to be very flattered that you have asked them to mentor them or to sponsor them. Sponsorship, of course, does go a little bit out on a limb because you're asking somebody to expend some political capital for you. But I think still most people would be very flattered that you asked for them to work with you. So don't be afraid to ask someone for help. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Absolutely. Thank you. We are coming up on our time for the evening, so please hang in with us for a few more minutes. So before we close, I'd like to ask one final question to each of you. What should be done to pave the way for future women leaders, especially for women of color at both the personal and organizational levels?
I would just recap a lot of what we've already said in terms about those intentional measures to create equitable organizations and pathways for women to advance, for women to either come in at the leadership level or to advance and create it through the pipeline, create a pipeline for women to advance. That has to be done intentionally. It has to be called out. It has to be resourced with human resources and financial resources, because if the talent doesn't exist, then we need to develop the talent from, within, or partner with local colleges and universities, vocational schools, to get the talent within the organizations. And again, be intentional about prioritizing Black and Brown women to fill the pipeline.
Okay. I would say what I mentioned earlier. Make sure that your leadership is building out inclusion as a leadership competency, not a nice to have. It should not just be be the responsibility of your diversity or equity and inclusion department. It should be a company-wide initiative that's dedicated to the culture. And I would say with the same amount, as Myra said, be intentional around dedicating those resources and that programming, not only for women and specifically for women of color, but I think in my experience, it is just as important to build out those same skills within your managers so that they understand how to manage and develop potential. That might not look like them. They know how to manage and navigate their own biases as they're making decisions about who's worthy or who's not for those stretch opportunities or those next opportunities. I think that's just as important. And lastly, again, tagging on to Myra, what gets measured gets done. Time metrics to this, time money to this. Hold your leadership, your managers accountable to this conversation. And if they're not performing in this space, as expected or needed to develop the workforce of the future, whatever that looks like, but it has to include women and women of color for purposes of maintaining our economy, not only domestically or globally. Hold them accountable to that. It's not to be punitive, but it's again to build out that skill and to build out that culture of inclusion and equity, that it becomes organic and it starts to break down those systemic inequities that have been in place for generations. So there has to be a leadership accountability across the board and not just on women and women of color to own it and lead it and push the conversations. It has to come from others who are holding on to the strings that make all these major decisions and pulling these levers.
In the interest of time, I don't want to repeat some of the things that Renee and Myra have already mentioned, but I'd like to add that I think it's important to normalize empathy as a leadership quality, and note that having a high EQ doesn't. It's a good thing, and it doesn't make somebody too soft. There's no such thing as being too soft to be a leader, and I think that leadership with a little bit more empathy would be a great thing.
And I'll move things a little more broadly to DEI overall and really trying to embed those concepts organizationally in everything that's done. Not just hiring, not just retention, but promotion, training from a care or a medical center standpoint. What does this mean for the care that we engage in? How does this change the way that we think about how we teach the field of medicine? How does this inform our investment in research and the kinds of research that we do? What does this mean for how we create our pipelines, our culture, our philanthropic investment? Really, every aspect of what an organization does and what it touches should have elements of DEI built in, not only who, but content. And I think when we really move away from just thinking about people and hiring and workforce to embedding those concepts more deeply, we'll more quickly get to the place where we want to be.
Thank you. I want to just, again, thank each of you for your time and your commitment this evening. We're just about out of time, and I think it's important to, highlight the power that each of you bring, as well as our participants, and being able to engage in these critical conversations in a time such as this, and that we continue them. We are committed to offering opportunities to engage with each other and the university and for personal and professional development. You can check out our co-sponsors, the Women's Network, the Black Alumni Network, and other affinity groups on the Meliora Collective. Look for those links in the chat. We have 3 additional events that may be of interest to you coming up in March. Bridging the Gender Divide in STEM on Tuesday, March 23rd. The Impact of COVID-19 on Women in Medicine on Tuesday, March 30th. Xenophobia in Our Nation of Immigrants on Wednesday, March 31st. To view our event calendar and register for those events, a link will be shared in the chat. We will also share registration information in our event follow-up email. We hope that you can join us. And lastly, we want to share what you can look forward to for the next Real Conversation. Next month, this series will explore key topics related to the modern day LGBTQ plus movement, which includes discussing the movement's intersection with other social justice issues such as Black Lives Matter and transgender rights activism. Stay tuned for more details that will be shared in the coming weeks. You'll now be directed to a brief survey to share your feedback on this program and have an opportunity to suggest other ideas for future topics. I'd like to thank you again for joining us. I wish you all a wonderful evening, and Miliora.